Please look at me once. Annie dropped to her knees on the snow-covered road. She was wearing a worn, mud-stained protective outfit like a grape picker's work clothes. The driver slammed on the brakes. The black Bentley jerked to a violent stop, its front end only inches from her. For 1 second, no one moved. Then the bodyguards rushed out. "Get her away from the car," one guard shouted. 2 men grabbed her by the arms. She did not fight, kick, or scream at them. She only leaned harder toward the windshield, her eyes fixed on the man hidden in the back seat. "Please," she said again, her voice trembling from the cold. "Please listen to me." Inside the car, Julian Vance did not move. He frowned, irritation cutting across his controlled face. "What is it now?" Samuel Reed, his longtime assistant, glanced through the windshield at the girl kneeling in front of the car. Snow was falling hard enough to blur the headlights, but not hard enough to hide the desperation in her eyes. "Probably another disruptor, sir," Samuel said. "We just sold Black Reserve at a record price. After these auctions, there are always people who don't accept being left outside the gate." His jaw tightened. Samuel Reed, his longtime assistant, opened the passenger door before Julian finished the command. Samuel was a lean man in his 60s, careful in every movement and hard to surprise. Tonight, even he looked unsettled. "I'll handle it, sir." Julian looked past him, toward the girl. "Quickly. I have a flight." Outside, the guards tried to pull her away. One of them said, "Miss, you're trespassing. Stand up before this gets worse." "Is this girl insane?" Another guard barked, his cold voice cutting through the wind. "Do you know whose car this is? You think you can throw yourself in front of it and walk away? Move before I call the sheriff and have you locked up." "I'm not insane." Annie dug her fingers harder against the hood, fighting to stay where she was. "I came here to see Mr. Julian Vance. Just 5 minutes. Tell him to look at this glass." "Let go, you filthy vineyard worker." The guard pried at her fingers one by one, his eyes full of contempt. "A girl like you thinks she has the right to bring wine to the Vance family? Get out before you make this worse. I'm not leaving. Tonight is my last chance, and I have to give this to him." Annie's voice cracked from the cold, but there was something in it that made even the guard hesitate. Samuel stepped between her and the car. "Mr. Vance does not meet strangers at his gate. Give me whatever you're holding and leave the property peacefully." The girl looked up at him. Snow melted on her cheeks, but her eyes did not lower. They were amber, strange under the headlights, too steady for someone surrounded by security. "My name is Annie Carter," she said, "and I'm not leaving until he hears my mother's name." Samuel's face changed only a little, but Julian saw it. Julian opened his door. Cold air rushed into the car. The smell of snow came first, clean and metallic. Then came another scent, so faint Julian almost dismissed it. Old oak. He paused with one foot on the ground. Ripe blackberry. Dark cherry. A thread of wild lavender moving beneath it all, not added, not perfumed, but grown into the wine like a secret that had waited years to speak. Julian stepped out. "Sir," Samuel warned quietly. Julian ignored him. His eyes were on the glass. The girl held it with both hands now, careful despite the guards gripping her sleeves. "Please smell it," she said. "That's all I'm asking." "I don't take wine from trespassers," Julian said. "No," she answered. "You take it from dead women and put your family name on it." One guard jerked her arm. "That's enough." Julian lifted one hand. "Let her go." The guard released her at once. Behind them, the mansion still glowed from the auction. Guests lingered near the front steps, wrapped in cashmere and fur, whispering as they watched. Victor Vance came down from the entrance, his tuxedo coat open, his face arranged into concern too quickly to be trusted. "Julian," Victor called. "Don't engage with her. She's the worker I told you about. Unstable. We had to dismiss her for theft." Annie's mouth tightened, but she kept her eyes on Julian. "He's lying." Victor gave a short laugh. "Of course I am. That's what people say when they're caught." Julian stood before Annie. He stared at the wine in her hand, then at her face, suspicion tightening every line of his expression. "You," he said slowly. "Who are you? Why does that wine carry this scent? Who made it?" Annie rose to her feet so quickly the guards shifted around her. "Mr. Vance, you smell it, don't you? This is the original taste of Black Reserve. The real one, not the flawed copy your company just used to celebrate tonight's award." Julian's voice lowered. but it shook in a way Samuel had never heard before. I asked you who gave it to you. The woman who made it died in poverty. Annie's bitterness broke through, and tears mixed with the melted snow on her face. My mother. The woman you threw away. The woman you let them brand as a traitor. Shut your mouth, Julian roared. The old wound tore open before he could stop it. Brother, don't listen to this crazy girl. Victor's voice cut in, too sharp, too fast. Panic hid beneath his anger as he rushed forward and reached for the wooden box in Annie's arms. Annie twisted away before he could grab it. Victor turned on the guards. What are you doing? She was a seasonal worker I fired 3 days ago for sneaking around, stealing wine, and harassing staff. She is slandering the Vance family in front of our guests. Call the police and have her arrested now. The guards moved again. Annie clutched the box against her chest and looked straight at Julian. There was no fear in her face now. Only exhaustion and a kind of grief too honest to perform. Please look into my eyes, she said. I have no reason to risk my life for a lie. Victor snapped. Be quiet, you trash. Enough. Julian raised one hand. It was not loud. It did not need to be. Victor froze, and a bead of sweat began to gather at his temple. Julian did not look at his brother. He looked into Annie's amber eyes, eyes full of injury, courage, and something painfully familiar. Then he turned toward Victor, and his gaze sharpened with the cold precision of a predator catching the first scent of a trap. Samuel stepped closer. Sir, allow me to resolve this. Your flight is already close to departure. The flight is cancelled, Julian said. Samuel went still. Julian's voice was calm now, and that made it more dangerous. Bring the girl inside the mansion. Victor's mouth opened. Julian, and Victor, Julian continued, finally looking at him fully. You will not leave my sight. Miss Carter, Samuel said, his voice low but formal. Please come inside. The mansion doors opened before Annie reached the steps. The guests were still lingering after the auction, glasses in hand, voices fading one by one as every eye turned toward her. Julian walked ahead without saying a word. Samuel stayed close to Annie's left side, not touching her, but near enough to keep anyone else from doing so. Victor followed behind them. His steps quick, his breathing uneven. His face had recovered its usual proud calm, but his eyes stayed fixed on the wooden box in Annie's arms with open hatred. Julian, this is ridiculous, Victor said first, his tone full of superiority and contempt. You are seriously delaying a signing flight to New York because of a con girl. Look at her. She is a ragged grape picker from the South Workers' Quarters. He stepped closer to Annie and looked her up and down. 3 days ago, I caught her sneaking around fermentation room 4, trying to replace one of our premium bottles with her cheap fermented grape water. She thinks adding a little wild lavender can fool the chairman of Vance Wines. People like her will do anything for money. Annie did not step back. She raised her head, her voice hoarse but clear. You're scared, aren't you, Mr. Victor? You said I stole, but when I asked a housekeeper to place that bottle on Mr. Julian's tasting table, why were you the first one to rush in and smash it? You fired me right away. Not because I stole anything, but because you were afraid he would recognize the taste. Shut your mouth, Victor snapped, his face flushing. You filthy little trash. I tried everything to reach you, Mr. Vance, Annie said, turning to Julian. Victor moved closer to his brother and lowered his voice. This is absurd. We can handle it privately. Let Samuel take her somewhere out of sight. Julian cut him off. Let her finish. The words gave Annie just enough strength to keep standing. 2 days ago, I dressed as a server and tried to get into the VIP cellar to give you this notebook. Your security threw me out before I even reached the door. I wrote emails. I stood in the rain outside your corporate gate. No one answered. If I hadn't stopped your car tonight, the truth about my mother would stay buried under the control of your greedy brother. Julian did not look at Victor. You seem very eager to get her out of my sight. I'm trying to protect you. Enough, Julian said. He left the edge of the table and walked slowly toward Annie, ignoring his brother. Samuel, bring her hot tea. Julian, are you really going to indulge this? Victor took one impatient step forward. Julian's glance cut toward him. I have my own judgment, Victor. Sit down. And do not interrupt again. Victor stopped, humiliated in front of guests who had spent years fearing his smile more than another man's anger. Julian looked at Annie, then at the box she held against her chest. You claim your mother created the taste of Black Reserve? Nora Carter, Annie said, and the name nearly broke in her throat. The woman who made it died in poverty. My mother, the woman you threw away, The woman you let them brand as a traitor. Julian's control cracked. She betrayed me, he growled. I saw the evidence 18 years ago. What are you to her? Annie lifted the old wooden box with both hands. If she betrayed you, why did she keep every memory of you? Why did she save your handkerchief, your photograph, your letters? Why did she leave me a final letter about the 18-year-old daughter standing in front of you? Julian fell silent. The room waited. Finally, he said, "Give me the box." Annie hesitated. Julian's eyes narrowed. You crossed my gate in front of half of Napa Valley. You wanted me to look. I am looking. Victor gave a short laugh. An old photograph proves nothing. Nora worked here. Everyone knows that. You told everyone she was a thief, Annie said. She was dismissed for cause. She was framed. The words rang through the hall, clean and hard. Annie placed the box in Julian's hands. He opened it slowly. Inside lay the pieces of a life he had spent 18 years trying not to remember. A faded photograph of him and Nora in the east cellar, a folded letter with softened edges, a handkerchief embroidered with the Vance crest, a dried sprig of lavender, and a black notebook worn at the corners. Annie reached for the notebook and held it out. This was my mother's. Her fermentation notes, her trials, her ratios, her corrections. She wrote everything by hand because she said machines could count sugar, but they could not understand patience. Julian took it. The moment he saw the handwriting, something in his face changed. Victor stepped in at once. Any skilled forger could copy old notes. Julian, think. This girl had access to staff areas. She could have stolen archives, copied labels, staged all of this. Annie looked at him. Then why are you sweating? Someone near the back coughed softly. A few faces turned toward Victor's forehead, where moisture had gathered despite the cold air still clinging to the open doorway. Victor forced a smile. Because I'm watching a stranger insult my family in my own home. My mother endured that insult for 18 years, Annie said. You've only had to endure 5 minutes. If you feel Annie's pain in this moment, please like this video and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Because someone near you might be watching this story too. Don't forget to subscribe for more emotional and inspiring stories. Julian closed the notebook. Enough. Annie gathered her courage, expecting him to send her away. But Julian turned to Samuel. Bring the current Black Reserve. Bring an archive bottle from the first commercial release. And bring 3 clean glasses. Victor's voice sharpened. No. Julian looked at him. No? You cannot let her perform some trick in front of our guests. If it is a trick, you have nothing to fear. Victor leaned closer. This could damage the brand. Julian's eyes did not move from him. The brand can wait. Then he turned back to Samuel. And find every file on Nora Carter. Employment records, security logs, seller access, termination documents. All of it. Samuel nodded. Yes, sir. Victor stepped back half a pace. Annie saw it. Julian saw it too. The night had begun with a girl kneeling in the snow. Now the most powerful man in the room no longer looked at her as an intruder. He looked at her as a question his own blood may have been avoiding for 18 years. And somewhere beneath the polished floor of Vance Estate, the buried truth began to stir. Samuel left the hall with 2 junior staff members, and the mansion seemed to hold its breath after him. No one returned to the party. No one laughed. The musicians kept their instruments in their laps, unsure whether they had been dismissed or trapped inside something history would remember. Annie stood near the tasting table with the wooden box open beside her, her wet gloves leaving small dark marks on the polished surface. A maid brought tea in a white cup with a gold rim. Annie accepted it with both hands. Thank you, ma'am, she said. The maid, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes, paused as if the word ma'am had reached a place in her that the evening's rich compliments had not. You're welcome, honey, she whispered, then stepped back before Victor could notice her kindness. Julian saw the exchange. He also saw Annie's fingers trembling around the cup. Not from fear now. From cold, hunger, and the exhaustion of someone who had spent too many days pushing against locked doors. How long have you been on this property? He asked. 3 weeks, Annie said. As a seasonal worker? Yes, sir. Who hired you? Labor office in Street Helena. I signed through a contractor. They put me in the South Workers' quarters. Victor cut in before he could stop himself. And she was trouble from the start. Julian turned his head. Victor remembered the warning and shut his mouth, but his pride made silence look painful. Annie looked down at the tea. I wasn't trouble. I worked. I kept my head down. I just asked too many questions about fermentation room 4. Julian's eyes sharpened. Why that room? My mother wrote about it. Annie touched the edge of the black notebook. She called it the room where Black Reserve learned how to breathe. The phrase struck Julian so hard that his hand tightened at his side. Nora had always spoken about wine as if it were alive. He used to find it charming. Later, after he believed she had betrayed him, he called it theatrical. Now he heard the same language from her daughter, and it felt less like coincidence than blood speaking through memory. Victor gave a dry laugh. Convenient. Annie looked at him. You keep using that word like it scares me. Before Victor could answer, Samuel returned. 2 men followed with a silver tray. On it sat 3 clean glasses and 2 bottles. 1 modern Black Reserve with a flawless black label, and 1 older bottle with dark wax and a label faded at the edges. The room shifted toward the table as if the trial had been announced without anyone naming it. Samuel placed the tray before Julian. The current release, sir, and the earliest commercial archive bottle we could retrieve without entering the sealed vault. Julian nodded. Pour. Samuel opened the modern bottle first. The cork came free with a clean, practiced sound. He poured a measured amount into the first glass. Then he handled the older bottle with more care. Its cork resisted, then yielded. A deeper aroma rose at once, warmer and less polished. Some of the older sommeliers in the hall leaned forward before they caught themselves. Finally, Samuel gestured toward the glass Annie had brought from the snow. May I? Annie held it tighter. No. Samuel stopped. Julian did not seem offended. Why? Because that was my mother's last bottle. There's not much left. I carried it here in the cold with both hands. I won't let anyone pour it like it's just another sample. A few guests exchanged looks. Someone near the fireplace sighed in irritation. Annie heard it and lifted her chin. Julian said, Then you pour it. Annie set down the tea. She removed her gloves, slowly because the wet fabric clung to her fingers. Her hands were young but rough, nails short, knuckles cracked from field work. She picked up her glass and poured a small amount into the 3rd clean glass. Not much, just enough. Victor muttered, This is humiliating. Julian said, For whom? The question landed quietly, and Victor looked away. Julian pushed the first glass toward Annie, the current Black Reserve. Annie did not reach for it right away. You want me to taste it in front of everyone? You demanded to be heard in front of everyone. I demanded to be seen. Julian paused. The correction was small, but it found its mark. He said, Then let them see what you know. Annie lifted the first glass. She turned it once, not like the trained tasters in the room, not with show, but with the plain care of someone listening. She smelled it, closed her eyes, then opened them. Too much new oak, she said. The fruit is expensive but tired. Blackberry, plum, a little cassis. But it's wearing a suit that doesn't fit. The yeast is controlled too tightly. Clean, yes. Safe, yes. But the middle is hollow. A younger sommelier frowned, offended. Harold Finch, the retired master taster with the cane, did not frown. He watched Annie, as if he had just heard a note only trained ears could catch. Victor folded his arms. That description could come from any wine blog. Annie moved to the second glass. The archived bottle. The moment she lifted it, her face changed. Her anger softened into something worse. Grief. She smelled again. Longer this time. The room grew so quiet the fire could be heard shifting in the hearth. This one had courage, she said. No one laughed. Annie swallowed. Wild lavender from the South Ridge. Not added. It came in through the yeast bloom. Dark cherry, blackberry skin, old oak but not burned. Longer rest before the second racking. Whoever made this didn't force the wine to become expensive. She waited until it became honest. Julian's face went still. Those words were not copied from a label. They were too close to Nora's mouth, Nora's mind, Nora's way of standing in a cellar with her hand on a barrel as if she could feel the future inside it. Harold Finch stepped closer. May I? Julian nodded. Harold smelled the second glass, then the first. His brows drew together. She's not guessing. Victor snapped. Harold, don't encourage this. I'm too old to flatter liars, Harold said, and too old to fear men who need flattery. A small sound moved through the guests. Some shock, some approval quickly swallowed. Annie lifted the third glass last. Her mother's wine. The one carried through snow, guarded under a cheap jacket. saved from a life that had left almost nothing else behind. She brought it to her nose and closed her eyes. For a second, she was not in the Vance mansion. She was in a narrow kitchen with a rattling heater and a towel stuffed under the door to block the winter air. Nora Carter sat at the table in a faded robe, too thin, too tired, but still correcting Annie's grip on the glass. "Don't chase flavor, Annie. Let it come tell you what happened." Annie opened her eyes. "This one is poor," she said. Victor smiled. Annie looked at Julian. "Not bad, poor. There's a difference. It didn't have the right cellar. It didn't have the right barrels. My mother made it while she was sick, with tools she had to wash in a kitchen sink. But underneath all that, the structure is the same as the archive bottle. Same patience, same lavender, same living finish. This is what your black reserve was before men started polishing it for applause." The words hit the hall harder than shouting would have. Julian reached for the third glass. Annie almost stopped him, then let him take it. He smelled it. His composure cracked. Not fully. Julian Vance was too disciplined to fall apart in a room full of people. But Samuel saw his breath catch. Harold saw his eyes lower. Annie saw his thumb press against the stem as if he needed something solid to keep him standing. Julian tasted. 18 years disappeared. Nora's laugh. Nora's hand covering his when he reached too soon for a barrel sample. Nora saying, "You keep trying to command things that only open when they're trusted." Nora beneath the yellow cellar light, telling him she had made something that could outlive both of them if he was brave enough to honor it. He had honored the wine, not the woman. Julian set the glass down. Victor spoke quickly. "A clever imitation. That's all. She could have studied the profile. She could have found old tasting notes." Annie turned to him. "Where would I find notes about lavender if your company removed my mother's name from everything?" Victor's mouth opened, then closed. Samuel returned from the side corridor carrying a thin file. "Sir, the full archive will take longer. But we found Nora Carter's basic employment record." Julian took it. The first page was plain. Nora Elaine Carter. Assistant cellar technician, later promoted to fermentation specialist. The promotion bore Julian's signature. He remembered signing it after Nora saved the October batch everyone else had given up on. He turned the page. Termination for theft of proprietary yeast culture. Breach of confidentiality. Suspected collusion with outside buyer. There it was. The old poison in clean corporate language. Julian read the signature at the bottom. Nora Carter. Except it was wrong. He stared at it longer than he should have needed to. Annie noticed. "That isn't her handwriting." Victor laughed too loudly. "And you would know?" Annie opened the notebook and laid it beside the file. Nora's real handwriting slanted with pressure at the start of every capital N. The signature on the termination form was flatter, rushed, and missing the small hook Nora made at the end of her last name. Harold leaned in. Samuel did too. Julian did not speak. He remembered Nora signing holiday cards for staff. He remembered her writing notes on barrel tags. He remembered the way her C curled like a vine. This signature was not hers. Victor's voice lowered. "Julian, you are tired. This girl is manipulating." Julian closed the file. Samuel. "Yes, sir. I want the security logs from the night Nora Carter was accused. I want cellar access records. I want personnel statements. I want every document connected to Victor's report." Victor stiffened. "My report?" Julian looked at him. "You were the one who brought me the evidence. That was 18 years ago. Then it has had 18 years to wait for us." Annie stood very still. She had imagined this moment so many times. Julian refusing her. Julian laughing. Julian ordering guards to drag her away. She had not imagined this, the first thin sound of a locked door beginning to open, but hope frightened her more than anger. Anger had kept her warm outside the gate. Hope could cut deeper if it failed. Julian turned to her. "You said Nora left a letter." Annie touched the folded paper in the box but did not hand it over yet. "She wrote it to you. May I read it?" Annie looked at his face, searching for the man her mother had loved and the man who had abandoned her. She did not know which one stood before her. "My mother carried your name like a wound," she said. "If I give you this, don't treat it like evidence. Treat it like the last thing she never got to say." For the first time that night, Julian's voice lost its edge. "I will." Annie placed the letter in his hand. As his fingers closed around it, Victor stepped backward again, almost too little to notice. Almost. And in that small retreat, Annie understood something with a certainty that did not need proof. Victor was not afraid of scandal. He was afraid of Nora Carter's voice coming back from the grave. Julian did not open the letter at once. For a man who had signed contracts worth hundreds of millions without blinking, the thin, folded paper in his hand seemed to weigh more than the whole estate. He turned it over once. The paper was old, softened at the creases, the ink slightly faded where time and poor storage had worked on it. His name was written across the front in Nora's hand. Julian, not Mr. Vance, not Julian Vance, just Julian, the way she used to say it when she was trying to bring him back from anger. Victor watched from a few feet away, his face still arranged into control, but his hands betrayed him. His thumb rubbed hard against the side of his index finger. Annie noticed it because her mother had taught her to watch hands. People's mouths could lie. Hands often forgot. Julian unfolded the letter. The room went quiet in a way that felt almost rude, as if every rich guest had suddenly realized they were standing too close to another person's wound. He read the first line. Julian, if this letter reaches you, then at least one door between us has not been locked by someone else. His jaw tightened. He read on. I did not steal the yeast culture. I did not sell your family's formula. I did not leave with another man. I went to the East Gate 3 times. I called the office until they stopped transferring me. I wrote to you because I believed, maybe foolishly, that if you heard me once, you would know my voice from their lies. Julian's breathing changed. Annie stood still. But every word cut through her, too. She had read the letter only twice before tonight. The first time, she had cried until she could not see. The second time, she had stopped crying and started planning. Julian continued, I am carrying your child. I found out after the day they threw me out. I wanted to tell you in person. I wanted you to look at me before deciding who I was, but they said you had already chosen to believe I betrayed you. His eyes stopped moving. The hall seemed to tilt around him. Annie's words outside the gate came back. Please look into my eyes. I have no reason to risk my life for a lie. Julian looked up slowly. You knew this existed? He asked Victor. Victor's expression hardened. No, it was too quick. Julian folded the letter halfway, then unfolded it again as if putting it away would be another kind of cowardice. Samuel. Yes, sir. Where is Mrs. Ruth? Annie looked at him sharply. You know her? She has worked harvest seasons here longer than some board members have been alive. If anyone remembers Nora, she will. Samuel nodded and spoke quietly into his phone. The order moved through the mansion faster than gossip. Within minutes, an older black woman was brought through the side entrance with snow on her coat and worry in her face. Mrs. Ruth looked first at Annie. Child, she said, walking straight to her. You all right? Annie's composure nearly broke at the sound of a familiar voice. I'm standing. Mrs. Ruth touched her cheek with cold fingers. Standing is enough some nights. Victor frowned. Why is she here? Julian answered without looking at him. Because I asked. Mrs. Ruth turned to Julian with the kind of respect older working people used without surrendering their dignity. Mr. Vance. Mrs. Ruth, Julian said. You remember Nora Carter? Her eyes narrowed. I remember folks who were done wrong. A few guests shifted. Julian accepted the rebuke. I need the truth, he said. Mrs. Ruth looked at Victor, then at Annie's open box, then at the letter in Julian's hand. Truth had a hard time getting through these walls back then.